Hi, I'm Parker Miley.
And I'm Tim Benjamin.
And this is the Rage Podcast, where today we are talking about Afghanistan. That's what's all over the news right now, and I think we'd be fools to miss the opportunity to share something about it.
And before we say anything else, Parker and I just want everybody to know that we are heartbroken over some of the images that have come out of there. People grasping onto airplanes while they're trying to take off, and people begging people to, not to leave and that kind of stuff, and that's just heart-wrenching. I heard a story on the news this morning about one of the big military transport planes was trying to take off, and a bunch of, I think it was over 400 people got on the airplane and begged to go with them, and the captain of the plane said, "We're not leaving these people here," and they took off with them, left with those people. That's heroes' work there. And to get them out of the way of the dangers that was there, it was, I believe, if I remember the report correctly, it was mainly women and children, and pulled them out of the way. So that's what soldiers do, and good for them. But before we say anything else about comment about what's going on and talk a little bit about that, we want to say how just gut-wrenching some of these images have been. And if you've been anywhere near an internet connection the last 48 hours, you've seen them. So
it's very it's almost hard to think about. What those people are going through.
That level of desperation shows how dire the situation is. So
I mean, that's.
And our hearts and our prayers go out to them, and pray to God that somehow peace can be reached in the situation, so we don't ever see anything like this again.
So let's just talk a little bit about what is even going on in Afghanistan. Me and Tim were trying to figure out how are we going to talk about Afghanistan today. And I was like, well, I mean, let's go strictly to the basics, okay? And I won't be specifically targeting Afghanistan. I'm going to talk about the whole problem that is the Middle East and what they've been facing from the beginning of time.
Right, and many of the conflicts we see today, you can go to the Old Testament and read about the exact same conflicts. So they've been there a while. Yeah.
So I would like to start by just mentioning, like, you'll hear the Taliban all the time. Mm-hmm. But what do we know why so we know that the Taliban is a terrorist group, but what are they trying to accomplish? What is their mission? Why are they doing this stuff?
And what they have is they have a group of beliefs, a group of ideologies that they want to enforce upon, I guess, the world. I guess we can say. It's not just that area. They wanted to go everywhere. That's what the September 11th attacks were all about. Was about taking their ideology out to the world, and they don't want to give anybody personal autonomy. They don't want to give anybody personal freedom, the chance to make up your mind about, well, really anything.
And that's true and fair. So I mean, I was taught this way in school when we've mentioned even 9/11 and everything. I'm learning about radical Islamic terrorist groups and what they've done and all these things. You learn, and the way they teach it is, if you go to Iran in the 1970s and you look anywhere about their society and you pull up some pictures, you would think you were looking at a picture of a city in the U.S. Mm-hmm. They were very advanced. Their society was very proactive at that time. Mm-hmm. Very
they had buildings and modern conveniences and those kind of things.
And the key word, I guess I would say, is freedoms. Mm-hmm. You look at these pictures and you can tell that these people are a free people.
Yeah, and what's happened in the years since is nobody wants to go build something that may get taken away from you. And because that's not freedom.
And then so this happens. So we're talking about Iran in the 1970s, and leading up to 1979, there's something breaks out, and the whole environment changes when we face the Islamic Revolution that took place in Iran.
And before we go on, I do want to be clear about one thing: is we understand that the people we see doing this do not represent everybody from the Nation of Islam. Okay,
yes.
And I know Parker believes that too.
Yes.
Any more than the Westboro Baptist Church represents us.
Yes.
Okay, so we want to be very clear that we are not painting with a broad brush. We're talking specifically about radicalism and violence.
Radical Islamic terrorists and everything. Yeah. But if you go to the history books, that's the title that it's used on.
Absolutely.
Is the Islamic Revolution of Iran.
Yep.
And so this comes back into place, and that means, I guess what they were fighting over is Western society, and what I mean by Western society is freedoms. Is personal freedoms. Mm-hmm. Came into Iran, and our Western ideologies came in, and grasp and it took hold, and the people were living different lives. Now, there's obviously a group there that was like, well, this goes against all of our tradition, you know. We were an Islamic dominated nation and all these things, and this isn't how we, you know, do things around here. So this group, and this is kind of where we start to see terrorist group forms.
Yeah,
okay?
And terrorism like this always forms around the fact is, are you and I allowed to live with each other in disagreement? You know, and if we say no, then we have to beat each other into submission, and that's where terrorism
until somebody
from.
dies. That's what terrorism is.
So freedom is the opportunity to say, look, you and I may not agree, but I still respect you as a person. Those kind of values are gone.
So
in this situation.
So war breaks out, and the side that won that war is the radical terrorist groups. Okay, so now Iran during that time period, you know, they did have a line drawn, where obviously to let so much of the Western ideologies in our society in, and they realized it went too far, so they set the bar way back. And now this is when you'll start to see images of women dressed in gowns and face coverings and all these things, and you know the society just goes completely shifted into this one way back.
It's a pendulum swing, sure.
And it only went there because of terror and outbreaks of, you know, and innocent lives being taken away because of this group thinking that they broke tradition, and they in the Western society crossed the line from where it should have been. Okay, so this breaks out.
Yeah.
And so they went so far back, then they realized every other nation in the Middle East has lost what they would say their traditions and their values. And so now we have groups like, you know, the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and all these groups that are all about, I guess, if you were to ask them, restricting, and in their eyes, they're restoring.
Yeah.
So that's what the mission of these groups are, is to go back to, I mean, I don't even feel comfortable saying, you know, Islamic traditions and everything.
Correct.
Because it's not necessary. Because look at Islam's anywhere else around the world. It's Muslims
not
anywhere
like
else
that
around
at all.
the world.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all. So these people have this sense of this is how it is, and so then we have terrorist groups leading all these nations, and they're dressed as religious leaders and all these things. And so this is where we get this massive conflict, and that is what's going on in Afghanistan.
Is they're trying to take Afghanistan literally back to the Stone Age.
Yeah, I mean, that's truly what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what it is.
In layman's terms, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
So.
And we went in then after we went in the months after 9/11 in 2001. We went in first of all to get the people who murdered all of our countrymen. I mean, that was just something we were going to do. But we also then went in to prevent Afghanistan from falling to what Parker's describing, which we've done for 20 years.
Yeah, and then if we're gonna, so we've done for 20 years. And 2016 is when the troops were withdrawing, correct?
Somewhat.
Somewhat.
We still had a presence there.
We still had a presence, but we were beginning to...
We were no longer in the offensive anymore.
Yes. Yeah. And we can go all about how...
Because Bin Laden was dead, and we had accomplished all those things.
And so we can talk about, you know, media coverage and all this stuff, and how has this not been shared, and yada, 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 but with the information we have right now, we learned that Afghanistan has gone under Taliban rule.
In the last couple days.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, they were almost waiting to sweep in. I mean, literally as we were leaving.
Yeah, that's what pretty much happened.
Yeah, and so the progress that we were made as far as protecting the freedoms in Afghanistan, you know, were compromised. I guess is a nice way to say it. So
and so then this is where, and that's why these people are fleeing. That's why we see, you know, it doesn't make sense for a person to just get up and leave when life is fine. I mean, you could say
that's be a motivation.
So obviously the people here in Afghanistan do not want to live under Taliban rule, and do not want to live under the rules and laws that they
right. And on top of that, they also know how brutal and aggressive it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, they wouldn't have been able to come in and take the country over in 2 days had there not been some aggression going on there.
I mean, so they realize that, and that's why we get the news articles of, you know, of a plane coming over with 400 women and children, and you know, people clinging onto the sides of aircrafts
because they know what's coming.
Country, because they see it.
Because, you know, there'll be people out there who have done things like, you know, maybe a woman went out without her head covered and something, and if the Taliban knows that, then they're guilty. And that's where the violence comes in.
If the
They make examples out of it.
But and you have to understand how cruel the Taliban is.
Yes.
It's okay. Listen, if it's a man's society. It's whatever the majority of the men say goes, and women have to do this. And once you break that tradition or that that law, you truly have to say best of wishes.
Yeah, best of luck in the next life. That's where you're going. Yeah.
Because it's so brutal and so horrendous.
And those people grabbing onto those airplanes and trying to ride out know that. They figure it's better to die that way than to die any other way. And,
or to live a life under
that kind of fear. And that is, let's be real clear. We condemn that in the strongest possible terms.
And now we condemn that, and so we have to realize that's why we have a presence there in Afghanistan.
Or had.
Yeah. Had. It's because no one should have to live like that. We
No.
You don't have to. I think we can talk to most children, and they can understand that what the Taliban is trying to put out is negative in all surroundings.
Right. And the thing that of all the sad parts of this, and there are lots of sad parts of this, the thing that's the most heartbreaking is people, the Taliban who are doing these horrible things, think that they're doing it in God's name, and that's
Isn't that hard to swallow?
Yeah, it is. Even though we're talking about Allah versus Jesus, even in that, I still struggle with a God who would want His creation to behave that way. I don't know. It boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. But what we want everybody to see here, I guess, the point we're getting to is we are heartbroken over what we see going on. We wish it hadn't been that way. And we're praying that the people of Afghanistan will be able to stand up to this force because, it's their country and they need to fight for it. And they have. I'm not saying they haven't. I'm not saying that nothing has happened. But, when you're dealing with an evil that aggressive and that powerful, you've got to expel it by force, and expel it means keep it out. Obviously, in 20 years, we were not able to stamp it out, and we certainly can debate that our withdrawal was not handled well. I don't there's a debate about that, but at the end of the day, our hope is that the Taliban will be crushed again by the Afghanis, not by the United States. Because they need to be able to stand up for themselves, and that's what we want them to do.
It's funny to compare what problems we face here compared to what they're facing over there.
Yeah, we don't have problems here compared to them.
We think we can say, oh, our government's doing this and this. Well, these people are truly fighting for their lives. It's either get out or
as bad as people claim we have it in the United States. I haven't seen anybody cling to the outside of an airplane over here. I've never seen that, never heard of that.
And we have people threaten celebrities of the U.S. who threaten, this happens, I'm leaving. This person gets elected, I'm leaving. This happens, I'm leaving, and all this stuff.
It's manufactured tension, I guess.
That's just something that the news goes crazy with that because that's how they make money off of. Yeah. It's just something they get to cover.
Yeah.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, and what's going on in Afghanistan is about as real as it gets.
It's just so. I guess it's horrible what's going on over there, but understand how blessed you are to live where you live if you're watching this.
The fact you can go outside without your head covered and go associate with who you want to and go where you want to and spend your money how you want to.
The daily freedoms that we have and we take for granted.
Yeah. And along with that, certainly our prayers for those poor people in Afghanistan.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what else to say. Just we pray that this works out in some way positive because no one deserves to live that way. Literally no one. So, anything more you want to say about that?
I think we managed to get something across.
Yeah. All right. Well, God bless any of you folks from Afghanistan who may be watching this video. Our prayers are with you, and our hope is that very soon the Taliban will be crushed beyond return. So, be thankful you live in the United States for those of you who are here, and we're just grateful that we get a chance to sit here and record ourselves talking like this because darn well under Taliban rule, Parker and I would be next on the block. So just take that as a good sign of freedom and appreciate it for all it's worth. So have a great day, everybody. Yeah.